Nick in Salisbury in the UK. It may be called a Salisbury, a chopsteak, or beef patty. No matter what it's called, it's always overcooked and fatty. What can you do? Sorry about that. Mad Magazine runs deep in my brain. I'm sorry. How confident can we be in the supposed dating of the Gospels? Are these dates as good as settled among scholars, or are there any arguments for alternative dating and or priority that you find compelling? You bet there are. You bet I do. The current dates that everybody swears by, the ones settled as axiomatic, place Mark about 70 because of the prominence of the destruction of Jerusalem thing in Acts 13, as if it's just happened or is about to happen. It's kind of vague reasoning. Luke and Matthew are pictured as coming from about 80 to 90 AD because most think that both used Mark, and it must have taken them a little while to get it and become that familiar with it and to think that they could improve on it. And most think that John is the latest, dating from about 90 to 100, partly because of church tradition that says so, that John was a young man as a disciple, the youngest of all, kind of the Robin to Jesus' Batman, and that he lived very long and wrote after all the other Gospels to supplement them. And, of course, these are all inferences drawn whether by ancients or moderns. I, however, find this unconvincing. For one thing, I think Hermann Dettering makes an excellent and strong case that the Olivet Discourse, or the Synoptic Apocalypse of Mark 13, Matthew 24, Luke 21, is based on the events surrounding the defeat of Bar Kokhba around 136 CE. And therefore, Mark would already, who uses it, be a second century work. Though, of course, it's possible that, as Timothy Kalani argued, that the apocalypse was not originally part of Mark, so Mark could have been earlier than that. But I doubt it, because we have evidence, tree rings in that gospel, awareness of the delay of the parousia at least 3 times, as I've talked about a number of times. This generation will not pass away before all these things have happened. That, of course, that gets into the thing, is that original to the gospel, but it won't pass away until, the whole generation won't pass away until these apocalyptic signs are visited upon the human race. The whole generation, the generation went by and nothing happened. So somebody amended that, saying, but as to that day and hour, I don't even know, only God and the angels do. And you had the modified promise, I think at the end of Mark 8, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God has come with power. That's especially an apocalyptic idiom. You find it a couple of other times, 1 Corinthians 15, Romans 1, for apocalyptic resurrection, etc. So there are some standing here because most of the generation has died off. Then that became impossible. In John 21, the issue is that the last known supposed contemporary of Jesus is dead, and everybody was pinning their hopes on him. He would remain alive until Jesus came back, but he didn't. So they explain it away and say, oh no, Jesus was just talking hypothetically. 2 Peter shows this. Where is this coming? He promised, the author says, quoting skeptics, ever since the fathers, the first generation of Christians, I think, fell asleep, the world has continued on as it has since the beginning. So the mockery was occasioned by the fact that everybody knew about this promise and it just faded out again and again. What did Mark do with he had to deal with the same problem. What did he do with the some standing here? Well, just as this generation thing was mitigated by the insertion of, look, not even the Son knows, etc., in Mark 13, here, this passage was used as a preface to the Transfiguration, as if to say, well, that's what he was talking about. Well, it seems to me, you've got the, and then in Matthew and Mark, I believe you've got this thing with the end won't come before the gospel is preached throughout the whole world. Well, that's yet another way of pushing it off. So Mark cannot be early. It seems to me it's a 2nd century work. And then so is Matthew, though Matthew is even later. It refers to the seat of Moses in chapter 23, which is part of the synagogue furniture that is attested only in the 2nd century. There are other anachronisms even in Mark's synagogues in Galilee, the use of the term rabbi, various problems, but Luke seems to be a 2nd century work. The use of the alienated wife who follows an apostle or teacher, that's common to the apocryphal Acts of the 2nd century. The kid Jesus, child prodigy story, that kind of fits the infancy gospel genre of the 2nd century, and so on. So I think the Gospels are just dated as early as they possibly can be for apologetics purposes. I see nothing compelling those dates and real problems with them. I think, forget it. There's just no way they're that early.